Hello. Thanks for being with us. I'm so happy that you're here. I look forward to meeting you in person when you're on campus here soon. My name is Jason Mahn. I teach in the religion department of Augustana College. I'm here in Old Main. This was actually the first chapel on campus here on the second floor of Old Main, where we now have our philosophy department. But I teach in the religion department, and I also direct the Presidential Center for Faith and Learning. And I'll talk a little bit about that center and its mission to lift up and live out the 5 faith commitments of Augustana. One of those faith commitments, as Dr. Monica Smith may have mentioned, is our commitment to social justice. And today I want to talk about how that commitment intersects with some of our other commitments here, especially our commitment to think about education as vocation and meaning and purpose, and not only to get a job, although getting a job is certainly a good thing too, and our graduates do very well. Let me say a little bit about myself, because I think understanding a little of my vocation will help us think about your vocation and our common calling here at Augustana. I've been teaching and learning beside students here for 14 years at Augustana. Before then, I was a teacher of religion and academic writing at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. One other thing I'd like to say about my background is studying at that Lutheran liberal arts college. It was called Gustavus Adolphus College. I had exposure to people and to ideas that I never thought were possible. I was a white kid coming out of the northern suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I remember January term, J term at Gustavus, when I was an English major and religion major, and I took this course called I've Always Wanted to Read Everything By. And we got to choose our own author, and we just tried to work through her or his literature. And I had read the summer Beloved, a novel by Toni Morrison, the Black author who passed away just a year and a half ago or so. And so I decided to read everything by Toni Morrison. I remember coming across one of her essays during that time, and Morrison said, I felt like she was talking to me. She said, white folks, and especially male white folks, can't necessarily hear what I'm saying when I write my stories, my novels. But they can and they should overhear what I'm trying to say. I did think she was talking to me, that I grew up kind of thinking my own white and male perspective was at the center of the world, and I was the norm and normative. And Morrison's challenge was really that I be quiet and that I listen carefully to those whose experiences are really different and who know justice and know hope in ways that I can't unless I listen carefully and join them in their efforts. Since then, I've been trying to do that good work, and it's another reason that I'm just so happy to be among all students and my fellow faculty members and staff and administration here. I'm going to print on my screen here and take you through some learning. So today we're going to talk about the relationship between this calling for justice and change and the Lutheran arts understanding of vocation and calling. That I direct a center called the Presidential Center for Faith and Learning, and that the mission of this center here at Augustana is to lift up and live out the 5 faith commitments of Augustana. I hope that you'll get to know these faith commitments well. I'm going to go through them here pretty quickly. Augustana is committed to interfaith engagement. We are a college rooted in the Lutheran intellectual tradition, But unlike some Bible schools or Christian schools who mainly want people to become the same, to all worship the same way or believe the same things, we at Augustana really, really value and want to foster different faith traditions. We hope that people come to Augustana, meet folks who are really different from them, and that through that encounter, gives us a chance to reflect and to ground ourselves in whatever faith tradition or ethical worldview that feels like it's home to each of us. Augustana is also committed to spiritual exploration, or I would say spiritual maturation. We hope that these 4 years are a time where you can grow in your beliefs, in your faith, in your understanding of yourself and where you belong. We also are committed to the reasoning of faith. In other words, we don't think faith is just for believing some fantastical things, but we can think about it, fully about it, and when we do so, we own that faith tradition more fully. The two faith commitments, though, that we're going to talk about today are Augustana's commitment to social justice, sometimes we just say justice, and to vocational discernment. Now, I know social justice can mean a whole lot of things. I think that Dr. Smith maybe gave you some understandings about what we mean by justice or social justice. For my part, I would say that while we sometimes talk about retributive justice or criminal justice or distributive justice, and we think about equality and equity in those terms, I think the kind of justice that's most important in our world right now is restorative justice, right? It's not a kind of justice where people just get what they deserve, although that's too, but a kind of justice that restores the beloved community. That's MLK's term, the beloved community, this diverse group that has been fractured and that can and should come together and to be healed, to be restored in relation to one another. It's really a biblical understanding of shalom or peace, the just community that is restored. So we're committed to social justice. And we're also committed to vocational discernment. Now, vocation is a kind of wonky word. When some people hear it, they think about the jobs of priests or nuns or monks. Other people might think of votech training, right? If you go into a trade. At Augustana, we mean something much broader and at the same time more particular than that. And I'll say more here in a minute. But my central questions, or our central questions, are these. How do these last two faith commitments relate to one another? What does social justice have to do with vocational discernment? Why is it that this Lutheran liberal arts college, Augustana College, is committed to both of these? Here you see a photograph from this past summer when there was a rally across the river in Davenport, and a number of our Augustana students, black, brown, white, female and male and transgender, met together with members of the community to rally behind and protest for Black Lives Matter. And we're so proud of these folks. Many of us joined them there. And that's the work of both social justice and vocational discernment. Okay, so let's start with the liberal arts. You'll hear a lot about the liberal arts, and not many of us really know what that means. Traditionally, there were 7 liberal arts. Let's see if I can do it here. Grammar, logic, rhetoric, arithmetic, astronomy, music, and geometry. Those were the 7, going back to Aristotle's day, before the Common Era. These liberal arts were those arts or education that was available to those who were free. In other words, there were some people, whether they were slaves or indentured servants, or people who were just too poor to have liberal arts available to them, who did the servile arts, or sometimes these are called the mechanical arts. And then if you weren't poor, or if you weren't a servant, right, then you could have a free life of the mind. Now, this isn't what we at this Lutheran school mean by the liberal arts. We do like a free life of the mind, but we don't think that service or servanthood is something that other people do, right? So that we can think big thoughts. We are interested in being educated for service as well. So Lutheran liberal arts is going to be different. Martin Luther was a 16th century reformer within the Christian church, and that tradition, Lutheranism, gets its name from Luther, and Augustana is part of the evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Luther says, no, freedom doesn't just mean to be from having to do work or from other people. It does mean that. And Luther says that the Christian person is completely free, Lord of all, subject to none. No one gets to tell me what to do because God loves me and I'm justified by grace through faith and I'm completely free. But, Luther says, the Christian person is also completely dutiful, servant of all, subject to all. Luther liked paradoxes like these. He wanted to see both sides of every coin. And so freedom has got to mean not only to be free from, but also free for. So when we talk about liberal arts at a Lutheran college like Augustana, we mean that we are free from having to do certain things. We enjoy the space and the beauty of this campus and the friendships here to be able to do what we want. But we also think of freedom as for, that education is ultimately not just about me, but it's for my community. And I always want to be serving that community because that's where freedom really comes alive. In Lutheran liberal arts, in Augustana, there's a great emphasis on love and service to neighbors and to neighborhoods. Here you have a photograph, a little bit blurry, of our tremendous Quad City area. It's such a diverse community, and we're so privileged to be a part of this community. The reason that Lutherans think so much about service and love to neighbors is the understanding is that there's nothing that Christians can do to earn God's love. And so a Christian, when she or he or them understand that they're loved by God as just a free gift, then they're freed. They're freed to attend to what other people are going through and be able to love them and serve them. Cornel West said that what justice is love in the public arena. And we think that too, so that the shape that love and service to others takes is justice. And sometimes the love that leads to justice is a strong love, sometimes an angry love, but it does lead to justice. And we're interested in that. So I want to talk now about vocational discernment, this fifth faith commitment of Augustana. Vocation is a word from the Latin vocare, which means to call. And so vocation is one's calling or the purpose of one's life. We certainly will help you, stand behind you in every way we can as you look for work. Get that first job and the second job and third job, your whole life of making money and supporting a family and doing good work. But we think that vocation includes a career, but it also goes beyond it. Unlike a career that is just about what I want and what I can get out of it, a vocation is about hearing my calling, hearing what I am or who I am and who I should be in this world. A really famous quotation is from Friedrich Buechner, who said that to find one's calling is to find the intersection between one's own deep gladness or joy and the world's deep hunger. So it is about me, but it's also about the communities that I come from and the world or the earth itself and what it needs from my gifts and my passions. In fact, at Augustana, we often talk about the overlap between three things. Beginning on the bottom right there, we think about one's own gifts or strengths. What am I good at? But then also my passions, and what really excites me, what I cannot not do, right? And that's a lot about me, and that's important. And there's a lot of introspective work that you'll do with CORE that helps you get a handle on what you're good at and what you really want to be doing. But then vocation, unlike a career alone, also thinks about the world's needs or the earth's needs or a particular community's needs. So if I, for example, am really good at and really find exciting developing marketing schemes that would sell e-cigarettes to underage kids, that is about my strengths. It might even be perversely about my passions, but there's not a need for that, right? That doesn't lead to a community's flourishing, right? So that could be my job, but I would say it's not my calling, right? Think of another example. If I feel called to be a real estate agent, and my agency knows that our profits will increase if we try to keep white folks in this part of town and Latinx folks over here and Black folks over here, that if we can not integrate those neighborhoods, right, the home values, especially of the white homes, will be higher and we'll make more money. Right? I might be good at doing that. I might even, again, perversely want to do that, but my community doesn't need that, right? It's not just, it doesn't lead to a beloved community. It doesn't lead to flourishing. So that work may be a career, but it's not a vocation. When I feel called to answer the world's deep need, right? And do that with paid and unpaid work like fathering or volunteering or even protesting, right? Then I am living out my vocation and not only doing my job. So it's interesting that the word vocation and advocacy share this vocare root. Advocacy is really to be called to others. At Augustana, some religious students think about vocation in terms of what God wants them to do or what God calls them to do. But our non-religious students and our Buddhist students and Muslim students, Jewish students might think in different ways about that. They may just feel that, no, it's my community that needs good teachers, right, to inspire and educate young folks. That community is calling me to be a teacher, right? And this is why I'm majoring in history and secondary ed. And this is why I want to return to live out that calling, right? So vocation could be from God, that calling. It could be from human communities and non-human communities as well, the earth itself. All vocation in some ways is advocacy. It's always for others as well as for oneself. Sometimes advocacy, which mainly fulfills predetermined roles and responsibilities, many of them paid, sometimes that turns into activism, where people decide that the way to make a change is to take to the streets, right, to protest, sometimes through nonviolent civil disobedience. This is another very valuable work to which many of our students feel called. Here you see a particular rally or protest sponsored by Latinos Unidos. This was a couple of years ago on campus, and it made a great difference in the way we at Augustana thought about justice at that time, and many changes that we made and that the community around us made. So here's, though, the real difficulty. Most people, when they think about their calling, they mainly think about getting a job, right? And they think about If there's a job that's out there and I have these gifts and these passions and they line up, I should take it, and then I'm all done, right? I've found my vocation and I'm set. But really, vocational discernment is an ongoing process. And that even when we're employed, even when we're doing good work in the world, we will see injustices. And some of those injustices will be other people in our community. Sometimes those injustices will be inscribed in the very organizations or nation states or economies that we find ourselves in. And when that's the case, we have to think carefully and act creatively to bring about more and more justice. Sometimes it will mean speaking truth to power. Sometimes it will be putting our own employability on the line to do what is right. But we think that that work in the end will pay off. It'll pay off financially, certainly, but more importantly, it will pay off in terms of helping to redeem a very needful world that cries out for justice. I want to leave you with this. For your homework for this segment of the scholarship series, I'm asking you to read 9 pages from the book called Earth and Mind by one of my favorite authors, David Orr. And the particular chapter is chapter 2, and it's called The Dangers of Education. Orr is going to go through his own understanding of the difference between a career and a calling. And he's mostly interested in environmental sustainability and environmental justice. But he talks about how just following your career may lead to some deep injustices. We always have to step back to ask difficult questions and to wonder about the larger purpose and values that are behind our work. And when we do that, we might also find a calling in what we do. Orr says this at the end of the chapter that I'm asking you to read. A calling has to do with one's larger purpose, personhood, deepest values, and the gifts one wishes to give the world. A calling is about the use one makes of a career. A career is about specific aptitudes. A calling is about purpose. A career can always be found in a calling, but a calling cannot easily be found in a career. I think that's right. I don't think finding your calling will be easy, but I do think it's incredibly important for you, for us here at Augustana, and for the world that cries out for justice and peace and wholeness. I'm so excited again that you're coming to Augustana. Thank you for being here. Blessings to you as you finish high school and begin this next step in what I'm sure will be a beautiful and a long and a courageous calling. Peace.